Oh, I could start with who I am. I'm working as a Chief Information Security Officer with the Internet Infrastructure Foundation. And we have two big tasks. We are an independent foundation with two different branches. One is to be responsible for the technical operations and administration for the Swedish CCTLDs, country code top-level domains for the internet. Everything that ends with .se or .nu, we have been messing with. And the other leg is that we are working to promote positive development and use of the internet in Sweden. So, for instance, we are running identity federations for Swedish schools and for the Swedish health sector. We are also a test organization for new GTLDs, new generic top-level domains such as .mom, .fuck, .biz, anything. Anyone, a couple of years ago, anyone who had enough money in their pockets could buy their own top-level domain. So just to register, I think you needed like $250,000. And then you were not even guaranteed to get a top-level domain, but still. A lot of people did apply for their own top-level domain, like 1900. And before they will be put in the root zone and published into the internet, they need to go through tests that we achieve. Technical tests, that is. And then, any one of you aware of Bredbandskollen, the broadband checker? Yeah, that's us. That's very popular. There's somewhere here in the south of Sweden who are checking like 2,000 times per day. I don't know why, but still. He's our favorite customer. We have the Webstar, Webbstjärnan, which is a school competition. We try to teach students not only to be consumers of information, but producers. So we provide them the domain name, web hosting, and they can put up the schoolwork together with the team and the teacher, and then we have a competition. And I think it's only 2 weeks away with the prize ceremony. So that will be interesting. You should go and check it out because they are really, really good and doing a lot of interesting stuff. What else? Internetdagarna, our annual conference, November every year. This year will be the 18th time, and so on and so forth. So this is the only slide in English. This is what rules what we are doing in order of the top-level domains, because John Postel, who invented not the DNS, because there was someone else, but the structure that he thought was good to have, like we took these 2-character national abbreviations and we make it as a distributed database for domain names. So .se for Sweden, .fi for Finland, .dk for Denmark, and so on. And then there were some others that were 3 characters, and there was edu for education, it's gov for government, mil for militaries, and that was the beginning. And we have no contract, we have nothing that says that we own this top-level domain, but we are the trustees for the delegated domain and have the duty to serve the community. That is what this RFC says. RFC stands for Request for Comments, and that is documents that partly at least are standard documents. Some of them are informational, some of them are best common practice, but there is a lot of standards. And Paul Mokapetris, he invented the domain name system 1983, and that was because the host files were growing too big. You know, you had this system with IP addresses and hosts, and you had to translate between them. You had to install that host file in every single computer and server, and it didn't work. So they invented the domain name system, 83, and 1990, Steve Bellowin, another researcher, he found some weaknesses, but they held that back for 4 years and didn't get out in the public. That was during the time when everyone was friendly and nice to each other. All people on the internet were good. Nobody did any bad things. So how much do you know about how DNS works? A little bit? I can explain it to you. This is a typical DNS dialogue. Here I sit with my coffee behind my computer and I toss in my web or URL www.mywebsite.se. So if this is a brand new computer and I just attached it and connected it to the internet, that it has no clue about what's going on. So it will start by asking the root name servers, where do I find this URL? And the root name server says, I have no idea, but it ends with .se, so I know who you should ask. And the question goes back here, and they ask .se's name server. Well, the address ends with mywebsite.se, so I suggest that you check the server here with this IP address, and then it goes back, and finally you find a local name server. Sure, I know where you find mywebsite.se. It's on IP address, yada, yada, yada. Now it looks even worse since this is an IPv4 address, and now we have IPv6, which is hex code, since they are much, much longer. But this is not an IPv6 presentation. Lucky me. Okay, so you could compare it like it's a catalog that looks up addresses and translates into IP numbers and back. And if a computer doesn't reach the right server, well, you don't get where you would like to. And DNS is the protocol used for this, and there's an RFC explained that too. And as I mentioned just a minute before, the communication in DNS is basically unprotected, and it's the root name servers who have control and knowledge about who is running each top-level domain, and for .se we know who is running every name server for every local domain, so that is how it works. That is actually the world's largest distributed database that works, that is scalable and reliable and never ends. It's amazing. But there is a lot of threats against DNS. We have on this side denial of service, things that make it stop work. And on this side we have data corruption and privacy. Both of them are treated differently. You have to mitigate threats from both ends. You make it also in different ways. So on the denial of service side, you have to protect the infrastructure. And you're doing that by using different protocols, different recipes, how to communicate, load balancing, diversified platforms, that's different platforms, different softwares, and monitoring. You have to keep track on your DNS very, very closely. And data corruption, that is what DNSSEC is used for. And DNSSEC protects from a lot of this, but not all. So it's important to know. So cache poisoning, that is corrupt DNS data which is introduced in a resolver, a name server that you use to look up things on the DNS. It's possible to return a false reply on that sort of when you ask for this URL, someone in the middle, a man-in-the-middle attack, could put in a false reply to that request. And then you end up somewhere else and you don't even notice. It's impossible to see from the user's point of view. And DNS hijacking is another issue that you can take care of with a DNSSEC, and that is with malware to get a computer's TCP/IP configuration to point to a false DNS server that is controlled by an attacker. Well, this is deep down. I think we should leave this. Or is it too complicated? No? You're still following me? Good, thank you. So people were thinking about making DNS more secure for a very, very long time. We started, or I was a part of the first project 1999. That was why I was still working for the Swedish ICT Commission. Back then, they had been written some RFCs or drafts, they call before they are accepted, And when we tried to use them in the workshop, they didn't work at all. So it was back to basics again, start all over. And the big issue, as with everything that involves encryption, is key management. How on earth should we manage the keys in DNS? Because you have to find a safe way to exchange keys between the parent and the child zone. Parent is, for instance, .se, child zone is IIS.se. Which was very complicated, and we tried and we tried and then tried and then tried. And I started a project 2001 when I started to work for the foundation. I started to run a project where we were testing and trying to be prepared for signing the .se zone, because I was thinking that that would be a very good step, a very good move for security, increasing the security in the top-level domain. And we also said to our name service providers that 6 months after the RFC is accepted, you will be ready to handle DNSSEC. And they were. So from 2005, Sweden or .se was the first TLD globally that implemented DNSSEC, which, looking back now, was kind of very brave. Nobody knew how it worked, and nobody knew the consequences when it didn't work, which turns out to be Cerf fail, and it's getting black. We have had some really, really bad experience over the years, but not very many, and we learned a lot from that. But then others were thinking about implementing DNSSEC, and they were thinking and thinking and thinking, and they believe that, like, 2008, there were not many top-level domains, or not even many domains at all, that was signed by DNSSEC. But then this guy, he published his discovery of a bug in DNS called, who was named by him, poor guy, the Kaminsky bug. And with the Kaminsky bug, the possibility to attack DNS with cache poisoning went from several hours or even days down to minutes or just 1 hour, which scared the hell of the entire DNS community. So I think it was a shockwave all over the world. And that was the starting point for more and more to get signed with DNSSEC. And if of the many, many eager talks and conferences and promotions and letters to ICANN, we finally convinced ICANN and IANA to sign the root zone. ICANN is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. They have IANA, who runs the root zone, who are also responsible for IP address allocation and stuff like that. But 2010, in June, the root zone was signed as well. And I was part of it because being working with DNSSEC for such a long time made me like a nice candidate to have on board when they put up the design and processes and routines to have the DNSSEC root zone signed. So this was in June. The first, we call it key ceremonies, just to point out how important this is, and that's very, very carefully taking care of processes and routines, and nothing can go wrong, and it's very transparent. I will show you more about that. The next ceremony was in Los Angeles in July, because there are 2 sites, one on each coast in the US, and they're both parallel, but there are different teams working with each site. I am on the East Coast, so I am in Culpeper, Virginia, and there are other people in Los Angeles, California. So the key material from the first ceremony was copied and stored and sent over to the West Coast, and everything is live streamed, and the signed root zone was published in DNS of VeriSign, who was those who were appointed to take care of the name service provision. Yeah. And Trust Anchor for the root zone is published by IANA on their website. So here we have the first root DNSSEC design team. These people worked very, very hard with everything, every single detail to make sure that there was nothing here to question. You can believe or understand how important it is because the entire world are forced to trust this, more or less. They have to. I mean, if the Russian doesn't trust how the DNSSEC keys are taken care of, they will start a lot of noise. Now they are involved in the processes and procedures. These guys I put in blue because they're two Swedes. They have been very, very influential in this design and how it works. Everybody else, I think, is, well, except for Tomofumi. Well, he lives in the US, but he's Japanese, obviously. All the others is from US. And the interesting thing is that in Sweden, we have such nice security skills. So they had so much to take care of in that designing work. And as I mentioned, IANA is running the operationals. They are controlling the key signing key, the KSK, and we have been using the same key since the start 2010, but that key is only used for to sign the zone signing key each quarter. So every third month, there is a team going either to the East Coast or to the West Coast to perform this key ceremony and go through generating new keys and sign the root zone. And that is what VeriSign does, distribute, sign root zone. This used to be in accordance with a negotiation with the US Department of Commerce, the NTIA. I think that is the counterpart of Post and Telecom Agency in Sweden. But now it's totally on the ICANN's responsibility because IANA handed over the control to ICANN in October last year, which was a very interesting transition operation. So how are they doing this? Well, the key generation and signing process, the guiding principles behind this overall design is that the result must be trustworthy and reliable at any time. There will be no time where you can question how they were doing things. And everything is audited, process and routines is audited against standards like 27002, Information Technology Security Techniques, Code of Practice. Have a very high security level. They will meet every relevant technical security controls according to a NIST special protocol, SP? Yeah. 853 that is required for high impact systems. So when we were choosing the HSM hardware security module, the crypto machine for this, there are different security levels, where the highest one is completely tamper-proof. So if you even tilt it, it will just erase the keys and you will start over again. Well, we couldn't have that for obvious reason. I can show you from the pictures. They were inviting people from the internet community, trustworthy representatives from the internet community was invited to have an active part of this key ceremony. And the selection criteria was that you should have strong technical knowledge was not the most important. Expected to be committed to the security of the DNS and knowledgeable or committed to being knowledgeable about the environment, blah, 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 blah. Really, really funny criteria that was very hard to, check. Okay, how do you measure that? Especially persons of integrity, objectivity, and intelligence with reputations for sound judgment and open minds. So that ended up with me now. Now, the thing is that people were asked to apply for this role as a trusted community representative. So I did, because I've been into this for a very long time, and signing a root zone would be like putting a strawberry on the cake. It's very cool, yeah. So how do we do to protect the KSK? Because that is what we need to protect. The key signing key will never ever get loose, or someone should never be able to get hands on that. That is the most important. That is the golden egg. Protect it with your life if you need to. So there are different sites, as I mentioned. This is El Segundo in Los Angeles, or El Segundo. And this is Telemark, Culpeper. We have very, very impressive neighbors here, like the Swift system for banks. Cool place, tell you. And sometimes I take the train because I don't like to drive in the US. So I take the Amtrak train to Culpeper, and my colleagues say, "You're crazy. You can't go by train in US," but you can. It's built upon different tiers. So if this is the building, this is the next house or the foyer that we have. This is the key ceremony room, and the entrance is here, door A. And to come in here, you have to get escorted by ICANN people. And here they put their eyes for just an eye scanner, and a deep voice says, "You are approved." And then we all get in here and sign in a book. And that door cannot be open if you will open that door, so you have to close that before getting open there. You have 30 seconds to get from here to there. And it looks like a theater, more or less. And that door must be closed to open that door, and that is where the secrets are. That is the cage. This is how the walls looks like inside this ceremony room. And here's the first vestibule I mentioned, where we, sign in this book. Nothing is permitted. And the very first time, they had an armed guy standing there. He looked very much like Clint Eastwood in some evil movie. I tried to brag him with candies, but he was... Oh, bragging. Physical controls. Always two in combination. Two people have to be at the same time to open doors. There's no one allowed to be there alone and doing things. Separation of duties. Extreme monitoring. It's camera surveillance. You have sensors with movement, seismic, and other sensors, and very, very much more. Alarms and stuff. And here is the cage. In this cage, there are two safes. Safe 1 contains the computer and the HSM, the hardware security module, used to generate the keys. Safe 2 contains small boxes. One box for each crypto officer. I am one of them. So I have one little box there, and I have a physical key that will be opened together with the ceremony master, who has another physical key, and both will be turned, to open the box. And in there is a plastic bag, a tamper evidence-proof bag that's used by CSI, And in that bag, there are plastic cards, smart cards, in small plastic boxes, because someone, we always have these propeller-headed people thinking too much, and someone said, "Hey, what if I punch my bag with a needle and can get into the card and extract the information from the chip?" And then I said, "Yeah, put it in another plastic bag, it will be fine." So we did. So we have, different layers. And it gets a bit crowded when we are inside the cage to open every box, get our cards out, and things. And here's a script. This is every single step is documented in the script. Everybody in this ceremony room follows point by point and checking it out. If there are any exceptions, that has to be handled with an internal auditor who rewrites an exception and put it in the protocol. It's very, very heavy processes. Sorry? Yes! But you have to beware that everything you say is recorded. So we try to keep it low. But you can smile. But after a couple of hours, I think it's still thrilling. But doing this, and the first ceremony took about 6-7 hours, because then that was when all the crypto officers should have the cards handed out, which took some extra time. Now I think we will run a regular ceremony in 2 to 3 hours. No biolog breaks. And this is the HSM. And I think that is the computer. So what happens is that for everything that is brought out from the safes, you read out the badge number, the bag number, the serial number from you will find from the computer, and the serial number from the HSM, and everything is checked back and forth. And here's the fraud stopper. It's nothing, no way that you can get into these bags without being noticed. But that's a lie. They used to have a brand before this, fraud stopper, that it was a researcher from Israel. She managed to get into one of those temper evident proof bags without any traces. So it's possible. But you get to get hold of it first, of course. Then you have a camera. It's pointed on, you see this is the brand AEP from this HSM. It's a black box. Everything, as you can see, everything is very, there's tape and it's signs and everything is, this is cool. This is a serial cable with everything stripped off. Again, just to make sure that no one has been tampering with it. There's nothing here, nothing there, like magician. And flash drives be used for every time. Yeah, here it goes again. I think it's very funny. And here's the smart cards that are used to activate the HSM. They do not contain any keys. It's just to activate the HSM to be able to generate keys, because the key signing key is deep inside the black box, the HSM. And by adding the smart cards, you can activate it to generate new soon signing keys that will be stored on that flash drives I showed for. Oh, much details, sorry. Please interrupt me. Yeah.
Can I ask how long do you think this computer will last? Because if that module breaks,
yeah.
you'll have to make a new one.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, we have 2 on each site. And the guaranteed battery time is 5 years. So we have changed once. But that's correct. They will not live forever. And here's the result. This is Al Bolivar. He's from VeriSign. And this is the hash of the key signing request. Because VeriSign adds the key signing request and gets the key signed. And we read together this, this PGP language, breakup, megaton, bison, molasses, keyboard, truncated, blah, blah. Have you been through that once? That's very funny. Here's the different roles during the ceremony. The ceremony master is that staff member from ICANN that rules the ceremony through the script. He keeps track of every point on the script. The internal witnesses is ICANN staff as well, who observes and record and documents, as I said, exceptions. The system administrators is technical staff members who are responsible for the IT environment, and the safe security controllers are staff member that is there to handle the safes. They open and close it. They are the only one who has the code for the safe during the ceremony. So there are different roles and different people, and still we have had a lot of fun sometimes with the exceptions. I'll tell you more about that maybe. The DPS, the DNSSEC practice statement, is the declaration who describes the processes and routines that is around for signing and distributing the zone file. And that is comparable with a CPS statement from a certification authority or certificate authority. You know about, this is how we're doing it. This is to what amount you can trust the way we're doing things. It's to be make sure that people can, just read it and say, okay, I think that is reasonable. And it follows the structure from another RFC, which is the framework for how to write a DPS, because we realized that if every TLD, every top-level domain in the world will write their own DPSs, they will do it their own way. So we decided very early to Tomofumi, Fredrik Ljunggren and I, to write this RFC to make sure that it's a framework so it looks sort of the same, no matter what top-level domains DPS you're looking at. Makes it easier for the user. Traceability and transparency. Well, there's a third-party auditor that is going through ICANN's actions, and they are doing it according to the DPS. External witnesses. Anyone can actually attend to the key ceremony. You have to be registered in beforehand, but there's a possibility to be observer. And they have a trust audit every year. So there's a lot of checks and controls. And this is the trusted community representatives have active roles, either as crypto officers, that's one of the part that I am, and then there are recovery key shareholders. And recovery key shareholders, they have cards as well. And their task is to protect the part of the symmetrical keys that is used to encrypt a security or backup copy of the KSK. So they need to gather 5 out of 7 on the same spot to do a bootstrap. They can actually generate a new KSK based on that with a new HSM. Should it be that nobody could travel to the US? I mean, Eyjafjallajökull, remember? Could be at risk. So that is plan B. And as I mentioned, the crypto officers, we have these physical keys to the safety box that contains smart cards to activate HSM. And that we need to be 3 out of 7. There's 7 people for each site. And 3 of them must be there to be able to activate HSM. So usually they call for 4 people because someone could get ill or miss the transfer or whatever. And I have to be able to travel to the US twice per year, per site. But I'm still only on the one. So this is something that is plan B, and they have to be able to travel on very short notice, but förhoppningsvis. We expect it never to happen. But they do an annual invention from ICANN. They call them up, say, send us a photo of this day's newspaper with a card, and to make sure that you still are a holder of it. So that's also very spy movie influenced. So here we are, the crypto officers. Alain, he's from Beijing, Uruguay, Tanzania, Sweden, US, Brazil, Nepal, Netherlands, US, New Zealand, Uruguay again, yeah. Russia, PT, thank you. Iceland, and I don't know, Mauritania. Okay, thanks. I should know that. And then they started out with a lot of backups, but they have been nagging on that since people have left. Cerf left. He was bored after 2 times. Ed Lewis was hired by ICANN, become a staff member, then you can't be a crypto officer. Masato Minda just didn't want to do it anymore. So that's what. So they have now a period when they're finding out how to select new crypto officers, because it's harder this time. For 2010, people didn't know what it was good for. I mean, people just, no, I don't think so. I don't want to be there. But now it's sort of cool. So now there's more competition. So they're planning to make enhancements to the procedure for future ceremonies, of course. Again, here's the script. And I don't have the key to the internet, even though everybody claims different. It's not the key to the internet. It's just to my little box. Different parts, yeah, different key ceremonies. Either you generate a new key, which happens very rarely. I will get back to that. Or you handle a request of signing some signing key, a key signing request. And what you're doing is signing the soon signing keys for the next quarter. And the trust anchor for the root zone is published in different manners just to make sure that people can get hold of it. Because it's very important that you have that in your name resolver. the one that actually helps people to look up addresses. And turn on validation, because if you have a signature on something and nobody never checks that signature, it's useless. But if you turn on validation, then you can make sure that people check the signature and that's correct against the key. So I should say DNSSEC today is standard procedure. And there are some new activities going on. The zone signing key was increased in size in last year, in October. And that was planned to happen before they changed the key signing key, which is going on right now. So it's separate but coordinated activities. And the reason why you are increasing the key length for an encryption key is obviously that the cracking methods is getting better and better. And the only way to change and actually minimize the risk of someone cracking the key is to increase the size or change the algorithm. But they haven't done that yet. Important dates. Is anyone here running their own resolver? You have to take care of this. So last quarter, we had the new KSK generated. In February, it was ready to run operationally. The changes will be in DNS for KSK in the root zone in July. And the new KSK will sign starting October 2017. And the current KSK will be revoked in January 2018. So you should put in the new KSK as soon as possible, and that will be used in parallel for a time. And then the old one will be removed. And if you haven't done that before that one is removed and you have turned on validation, it's black. It's Cerf fail. Nobody will get where they would like to. So that was what's happening. All the details is video recorded, and you can always get back to have a fair look at a key ceremony if you like to, but it takes a ton of popcorn. This is me waking up very early in the morning in Culpeper. Culpeper, Virginia is an absolutely amazing little city. If you have the ability to go there, please do. They have very nice restaurants. It's small, it's very familiar, it's cute, typical American city. So why do they change the KSK in the root zone? Well, primarily it's because they want to make sure that they know what to do if they should need to do it. It's not that it's necessary right now. It's not that someone has been tampered with the KSK. It's not it's having the best before date or known weaknesses or things like that. But no key should live forever. That is very, very bad encryption practice. So besides to practicing the processes and routines for the key rollover under normal and controlled circumstances, because when something happens, then it's not very normal. And you don't want to try that the first time in a crisis. So that is why they want to do it when they can. And they actually promised the community to do it after 5 years. And now we are almost 7 years after that. So. But it involves uncountable people that will be involved or affected. Anyone running a resolver, I mean, people like you, will be affected of this. And it's very, very hard to cover all test case possible to make sure that everything will run smoothly. So people will be aware things will break down. And to change the trust anchor, you can do it either by configuring it directly into the validator, or you can turn on automatic updates according to RFC 5011. Now, this is very theoretical because since it hasn't happened before, you don't know if it works or not. So still, you keep your fingers crossed, you turn on automatic updating, and if it doesn't work, you have to have create some sort of manual handling. There is a lot of information about the key rollover for the root zone on mailing lists. You can follow ICANN on Twitter, and they have a website. And there is a lot of useful tools for DNSSEC to test the implementation, to use DNSSEC in local systems, tools to put up your own name servers, and tools to test DANE implementations. What on earth is that? And can I check if a domain is signed? Yes, of course you can. There's a very nice name and shame site where I look this angry if they're not signed and look very happy if they are signed. And we have also a tool that we have developed together with the French registry, AFNIC, which is called ZoneMaster. So that is nice tools to use to check your DNS configuration and if it look like the best common practice told us to do. Current statistics, how far has gone? How long time? Pizza in 10 minutes. Yeah, well, I think I will make it. Okay. Statistics. There is a lot of top-level domains, as you see, 1,531. Most of them are signed because ICANN was smart to tell them, those who were applying for a new GTLD, you have to be signed by DNSSEC. More statistics, I don't know. This is how it looks like worldwide. It's not many experimental any longer, announced, partial, DNS en route, operational, quite a lot. And in .sc we have a very nice growth chart. And that is because we are giving our registrars a kickback for every domain they are signing. Which is some sort of incitement. It's hard to convince people to do something that is not asked for by the customers. It's not a very high market pressure on DNSSEC. But honestly, it's an improvement of the DNS infrastructure that should be there already. Since you know, as I told you, it's very easy to lie in DNS. And we are quite high on the level of resolving, that is validating signatures. And that is that we quite early convinced the large ISPs to turn on validation. That was, I should say, back in 2010, probably. So all the large internet service providers in Sweden turned on validation for DNSSEC. Very, very good. But then again, to implement DNSSEC has a price. It can be potentially lethal for your online existence if you're doing it wrong. Traditional DNS is very forgiving. You can do so many errors and wrongs that it's incredible that it still works. This DNSSEC is nothing like that. You really have to know what you're doing and when to do it. So it requires more attention and more knowledge, especially when it comes to looking for errors. But then again, I think it's about time that DNS will move into the living room from the basement, because DNS is such an important part of the infrastructure. So this is what will happen if something goes wrong. You will not even have this, option. Do you want to continue like you do with the, regular TLS certificates? Always ask you. This certificate is probably false, and you will end up in some very fishy environment. Will you continue? And everybody says yes, of course, no problem. So the reason why DNSSEC is around is not only to stop cache poisoning. DNSSEC actually fixes authentication of the sender, verification of the data integrity that is real, authenticated answers on request on non-existence domains, which is also very interesting, because you can actually go and put in false information in DNS about domains that don't even exist. And importantly, this is only for DNS data, nothing else. And it's only in the zone file. So if you have buggy information that you put in your zone file, then you will sign the buggy information. There's nothing magic about that. But the thing is, with DNSSEC, you will have the same domain-validated trust that you will get from any CA, even better. So, because the revocation is immediate, you take out your keys and it's gone. It's eliminate. If we eliminated this CA threshold, we can actually make sure that we have a large-scale development of secure communication. If you compare DNSSEC to X509 regular certificates, so DNS with DNSSEC has the potential to be the global PKI that ITU only can dream of. Sure. Because DNS have no requirement for central control, which traditional X509 has, which makes global development possible. And you know, from the experience lately, people working for certificate authorities have had some bad days, to make it polite. But what DNSSEC doesn't fix is confidentiality. It's not encrypted. It's an open communication in clear text. It's only signed. It does not fix identifying of who is behind the domain name. And it cannot stop criminals from using the internet. And it will not end global starvation. Because, you know, it has been so much discussions about, it's no use for DNSSEC because it doesn't improve anything, it doesn't do anything. And, well, I have to strongly disagree. And how safe is DNSSEC? Well, it's as safe as the underlying cryptographic algorithms. So what you get, you get. If you have a bad algorithm, you will probably have a bad solution. And there is a lot of solutions that is available, and there's a lot of experienced people who can help for those who won't like to do it themselves. And short term, well, right now, well, as I said, all the Swedish internet service providers is validating the DNSSEC signatures for the customers, and correctly handled, DNSSEC signed zones gives you an increased security by stopping man-in-the-middle attacks and cache poisoning. But in the long term, you will have more robust and more reliable internet infrastructure, no more lies in DNS. And if we can use DNS for other sorts of trust services, you know, if you have your root zone, or you have your own root zone, your name zone, your zone file, sorry. And you put in public keys in that zone file. You sign it and distribute it on the DNS. You have this absolutely perfect container to distribute public keys for other security protocols, such as SSH, TLS, SMIME, whatever you like. So we can use DNS to securely store public keys in DNS records, sign it, and distribute it. Isn't it beautiful? Yay! So this is the abbreviations you should have a look at. SMTP, star TLS, SPF, DKIM, DMARC, DNSSEC, DANE, and TLSA. All these are new, quite new and recent security protocols that is winning land right now and improve communication on the internet using encryption mostly. Yes, made it. As the security person, you always start at looking at the risks. I mean, I think it's part of personality thing, and that's something that I've been biased with during the years working with security, that you always think, okay, that's cool, but. And now I've been going more and more into this deep internet of, I can't even spell, Internet of Things. Well, So this is how I look at it. Before the internet, we all had this fantastic idea. Think about all the possibilities to instantaneous exchange information and ideas. Isn't it just brilliant how productive we can be and effective, and what use to our society this will become? And the future looked really, really nice and bright. And to be honest, internet is the largest common IT platform that ever been around. It's unbelievable, both in the matter of how it scales, how people use it with no respect of what we thought from the beginning. You should send emails, come on. Web? Nah. Okay, well, now everybody is talking about digitalization. Have you heard that word? Yes. And it's like people are looking upon it as a more or less autonomous process that just happened. It's like meant to be. And it will bring so much good to society. Everybody's talking about the digitalization, the e-health, e-government, e-blah, I don't know. But one basic rule for this is absolutely unbreakable availability to a common infrastructure such as internet, which means it was always on and it must be secure and available. But if that communication will be disturbed and stop working, have we really prepared for that? Are we really aware of what will happen if internet breaks down for real? What are the new risks? What are the new threats? Have anyone just thought through this? And I would say that the infrastructure we have today, even if it's this beautiful, it's not enough. We don't have enough fiber optics in the ground to take care of the communication needed. And to attack a hospital today, you don't even have to get close to it. You just look up one of their main fiber optic branches and cut that, and they're offline for a long time, which is kind of scary. Take one or two of their most important communication routes, and they're gone. So I think that we are taking a little bit too light on this part of digitalization. We are not thinking that through very carefully. So we need a more nuanced discussion about the future threats and what we can do to secure the basic digital communication. Vulnerabilities. There's a lot of them. The big difference between the paper society and the digital society is paper is much, much harder to make large-scale attacks against. I mean, just imagine. Try to write 2,000 letters and send them to random people, or find a security vulnerability in a certain pen. But a vulnerability in a phone, a smartphone today, is not just only about one phone, it's about the entire series of that phone with the same operating system. And with that, it's possible to attack every phone at the same time, which is huge numbers. So that means that something that will be implemented in millions of homes or millions of phones must have security requirements that is much, much higher than we're used to. Do they? No, not really. So in December, there was this new malware in Android that cracked over 1 million Google accounts. Do you remember that? And even if the attacked versions of the operating system Android was old, that is not a problem, for people don't change, they don't update. 74% of all Android things are still using some of these old versions of operating systems, which is bad.
Or they can't update.
Or they can't update. That's true. So mobility, Internet of Things, quantum computers, big data, virtualization. You have heard all of those new buzzwords, but all of them are meaning new threats and new risks, but also room for improvements, not least in the security area. New techniques can be used for improved security as well. Not only gadgets and features. Well, security is a gadget and feature, of course, but for some reason, for every breaking technique with all these fantastic possibilities that we come up with from human part, is for some reason we just close, we put a blind side on the fact that this will bring new risks. But to create security, we need to think about worst possible cases ever in all different situations, just to make sure that we have thought about it and mitigated. It's not that hard. I mean, of course, there will be scenarios that we can't imagine. For the bad people are always so much more creative, and they think much, much more out of the box than you do as a normal, good person. It's always hard. How in earth did they come up with that? I don't know how many times I've been thinking that. How did they figure that out? To abuse this service in such a way? Because we don't think that way. Most people don't think that way. Which is bad, of course, but anyway. So security by design, it's fundamental. It's not a buzzword. It's really important to make sure that we have the security we need to make all this happen, because it's fantastic. I mean, most of the things we can do with the digitalization is absolutely amazing. But it needs a robust, available infrastructure in the middle, or not even in the middle, it should be distributed everywhere, and security in every different device that you will connect. And still, if you do manage to have security in the lamp, in the scale, in the driller, they will all be run by a mobile app, which is not secure at all, most of the time. So that is a problem as well. So the easiest way to attack right now Internet of Things is go through these crappy apps that people develop without any security at all. Okay, enough about that. So security by design, it's a fundamental difference between security by design and secured. When a secured system starts from standard components and adds security on top of that. We have virtual private networks, we have firewalls, we have tunneling, and the attacker needs only to find one hole. You have to defend the Magellan Line, the Chinese wall. I mean, that's a huge area. So it's rather asymmetric in that sense. And security is possible to implement from the beginning, because put it on in afterward, that is very expensive and very complex. A system that is built with security by design is never implementing a vulnerable function, so there's nothing to use or abuse. Because it's designed to do what it should do and nothing else. I will show you some examples. One of my strongest recommendations is stop buying crappy stuff. I mean, most of the time you get what you pay for. And most of the time you get what you require if you know what to ask for. But that is the hard part. How on earth can I put up the requirements that I need to make sure that all these facilities, control system works as expected? The church in Hedemora, where they started the church bells. I mean, that is harmless fun. Yeah, right. Open doors, getting worse. Connected webcams used for a distributed denial of service attack. And it was not a very huge number of cameras. It started with people saying, oh, millions and billions of devices used to put DINE, the DNS operator, on their backs. But I heard him present on the RIPE meeting, and said it was 30,000 devices. I mean, that is what we can just get together here in Sweden. And by using that flaw, they could put down a lot of sites that was relying on DINE for their DNS. And they had the bad taste to put all the eggs in the same basket. They didn't have a backup. Sorry? MSP, for instance. Yeah. Melting ice, cold in houses, internet things, warm water, elevators can be used to send spam. There's a lot of this kind of stories. I mean, this is cheap products, low quality. They are factoried with very low margins and in big volumes. The people who are making this, they can't afford to put money on security. It's as easy as that, because their margins are too low. So this is cheap, embedded things with real poor security and standard passwords, for instance, that you, in best case, can change. But then again, this was not a very advanced attack, that we should know better. Your fridge can be a part of a network attack. What about the dishwasher with a web server implemented? How useful isn't that? Again, security by design. Why on earth do you just install the entire stack of protocols in a dishwasher? There's no need for that. It's just problem coming up. TV has never been this smart. Samsung's new sales argument. Well, yeah, right. They also recommend people not to stand too close to their TV sets and talk about secret things because everything is recorded. That is their advice, not to, you know.
To be fair, it was the same reason why the Xbox One was initially banned by the US Armed Services on their bases.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And then again, should we really be abandoning nice things to do just because crappy security, or should we try to make them more secure? Here is one of my favorite. This is the Internet of Ransomware things, because what happens is either you get DDoSed or you get ransomware. And if you have this, if you don't send us cash, your reputation will be in the trash. I like that one. $30 in Bitcoin, or next time I smell smoke, I might just let you sleep. That's a nice one. And this is probably the best. Send me $25, or I tell everyone on your social network that you were stupid enough to buy an internet-connected broom. So for a layman, the phrase Internet of Things just, builds up a whole fantastic picture of what you can do, where the future is where your refrigerator just checks where you have there inside it and order food automatically when the milk is getting old and the butter is out, and tired commuters, they order filling of the bathtub on their way home in their driverless car. Everything can be possible. But if you think about the consequences, if anything of this goes wrong, well, it could be really, really bad. But the fact is, IoT, or Internet of Things, is already here. We have these Wi-Fi hubs, we have smart TVs, video cameras. We have all our wearables and mobile stuff. I don't know what to do, actually. I don't have any big, huge plan for a solution, but you can be sure that this will be used by criminals for in a different way and with only one target, to get as much money as possible from you, one way or another. Stealing it or ransom it or whatever. And even as a part of international cyber warfare. That is something people are starting to talk about right now. Did you hear that the Danish defense was hacked by the Russians? At least they say so, they were hacked. And what I, reading between the lines is somebody got their email account hacked by probably having a poor password, but that's another story. But now, here's the reason. I have the root cause. It's people. They're buggy. They don't know what to do, and they don't know how to do it, and they don't even care for most of the time because nobody asked them to. I don't know whether it's starting to change, but the most system developers that I know don't think security is not in their spine. It's not there if you don't remind them, if you don't tell them, if you don't nag them often enough and say, hey, what about encryption in this software that you are trying to do now? Yeah, what about it? Well, how do you protect the communication? From, well, So everyone working with security has a job, a responsibility to try to work together with not only development but also operations. And I would wish that every DevOps team had someone who's really into security. Probably they have, I don't know. But sometimes there's more like going forward and solve the problem, but not that problem, but, So yes?
It might be something to do with the
Sorry?
specimens. When you get an assignment, usually security asks, as far as I've seen, at least from what I've heard, security aren't specified.
No, it's not. And that is also because it's hard, because you don't start from the beginning. When you want something, if you would like to ask one, I would like to have a software that do this really cool thing, then you should start with your homework, just asking yourself, what kind of information will this system handle? Is it sensitive? Is it secret? Is it worth something for someone? And when you have identified that, your assessments, then you should do a risk analysis and think, okay, what is the worst case? What is the worst that can happen with this piece of information? And how do I mitigate that? So on a functional level, you can ask for everything that will be communicated over the internet should be encrypted. And then that is what? How they will solve the problem, it's up to them. That is how I work internally, because I have this what function. I put the requirements on a very functional level, and the operations and developers, they have to decide, how should I do that? Because that is a continuously moving target. New techniques coming up, and I will not be able to keep track on everything. But looking at 2013, the part of end-of-life program installed in computers globally was between, give me a guess, in percent. End of life, they have reached end of life. Globally, software, how many percent?
60? 80?
No, you're really pessimistic. No, it's 3 or 4%. But that is, it can sound like not too bad, but end of life is more or less a year after the latest update. So it's something wrong here. And it's growing. The latest month it has been between 5 and 6%. And how that will be in the IoT world, we have no idea about. There's an obvious problem here. How many of you have heard of Shodan? Great. It's amazing. He also have now refrigerators. He have webcams. The last part he added, he comes to Stockholm every other year to present on 4.6 conference in October about industrial control systems and security. And John Madley is his name, and the last thing he added was eye kettles, water boilers. You can hack them too. You can use them for denial of service attacks. And one part he quite recently added was the part that is having picture dumps from vulnerable webcams that don't have a password protection, and that's streaming video. This is a picture from a small child's room. I don't know whether you have read examples from where people have hacked and not only recorded the children but also talked to them in the middle of the night, scaring them off. And this page, it contains pictures of marijuana plantations, which is not very smart, probably from those putting the webcam on that. The police is happy, of course, but it's security parts of banks, kitchen, living rooms, gardens, backyards, garages, you name it. Everybody has a webcam. And if that is not protected and secured, you have a huge risk. This is an app. This is an app who controls your entire house. Checking the temperature, whether the door is open, if someone is present or the lights is on. Yeah, so you can see very useful. To be honest, I don't. Of course, it probably very cool to be able to turn off the light when not in the room, but I don't know. I mean, but then again, I'm old. So now what we are heading to, which is something that scares me, is that the politicians are starting to wake here. And the politicians usually raise demands on legislation. We need legislation. We need products that is accepted by certification and common criteria, and which will mean this will be, a stop for the end of innovations and the end of financially easily overcome products. Because cheap products, we don't want that, because there's no security. That is why I have to rephrase. No cheap. But they could be available for everyone. Last time it was SMTP and mail servers. When they started with spam and things, then the politicians waked up and said, we need central and controlled email services. We need everything like that. So, yeah.
How did we do to not get that?
I think first of all, the ISPs or the mail service providers started with heavy filtering. They just took that seriously. Now today, there's really no user of the email that thinks that spam is a problem any longer. Do you agree? Because we don't see it. But still, email is 90% spam. But it just disappears because filtering has been so much better. So I think that is the main reason. So innovations.
And self-regulation in this.
Self-regulation, yeah. They took responsibility and said, okay, we will fix the problem. It's a heavy duty for them. It will cost them a hell of a lot. And we still want free email. So it's a problem. Now, the difference from then and now is before there was someone human involved in these machines, the computers that were set up, routers, servers, and they were updated and they were taken out and changed by time. And phones is not that huge problem. We change our phone like every 3rd year because it's, the batteries stop working and it's new fancy models out in the market. The problem is probably houses. They don't go away for service too often. And they have not changed that often as well. So I suspect that IoT devices that are put in houses today will live in 20 years as well. Like a thermostat? Yeah. When did you change your thermostat latest? Never. Or when it breaks.
Before it was internet connected.
Exactly. And you don't even know if it's internet connected. That is also a great thing right now. A friend of mine, he was buying this bathroom fan, PAX, for better improve the ventilation. He put it in his bathroom, and suddenly he realized it has Wi-Fi on it. Because he should be able to run it from his app in the phone, but there were nowhere that it was told that this contains a Wi-Fi, you should protect that as you do with all your devices. Nothing. Pacemakers have Wi-Fi today. I don't know, have ever of you heard of Marie Moe, the Norwegian woman who have a pacemaker and realized that started to communicate with her hospital every night when she was asleep. And she thought that was quite intrusive. And she started a research project, not herself, but she has a group of people researching on pacemakers and how to hack them. Obviously, she can't be a part of that because that will affect her very badly. She told me about a lot of nice, not so nice events that she went through. I will skip that. This is a speech for the Congress that Bruce Schneier held, and he was very true when he said the internet era of fun and game is over. Because so far, nothing bad actually happens. Okay, a website is down, fine, no one dies. But there is computers in everything, or turn it around, everything is in computer. The phone is a computer you make phone call with. The refrigerator is a computer that keeps your food cold. The car is a transportation device with computers. An ATM is a computer with money inside. So everything is hackable and everything is connected. And that is what Internet of Things is about, and that is what caused the denial of service attack on Friday, the 21st of October. And as he say here, is now we have come to a state where people actually can die from a denial of service attack or a break of a vulnerability or whatever it is. And that is quite serious. That is nothing that we would like to happen. That would put a very quick end to everything that we like to do on the internet, probably. This is something that I also use to... You have to choose between these three: secure, fast, or cheap. Fast, cheap, good luck. Fast, secure, it's going to cost you. Cheap and secure, it will be ready right after you need it, and all the three not going to happen because it will become too expensive. People will not afford to buy the stuff which is made cheap, secure, and you will get it very quickly. So our computers are relatively secure for a number of reasons. We have been working with them for the last 3 decades. We know them. We hug them. We take care of them, give them some love from once in a while. And the engineers on Google, Apple, and Microsoft, they have spent a lot of time on this over the years. But the Internet of Things, there's no humans involved in this. They just talk to each other. With artificial intelligence, that will become even worse because they're training computers, or they believe they will be able to train computers to act like humans. But I think the best combination is humans and computers together. That is where things happen. So, if I say 3 things that I've noticed, attack is easier than defense, of course. You still have to protect the entire line, whereas the attacker only needs to find one vulnerability. And complexity is security's worst enemy. The more complex, the harder to protect. And there's a number of reasons to that, and especially with computers and internet. Because internet is the most complex machine that is ever built. And it's very hard to predict what will happen when you combine. If you have one secure device here, and you have another secure device or software here, and you combine them, something else will happen that you didn't count on. New vulnerabilities. And the more we connect them together, the more we affect the security. Another thing is, that in the connections there will be new vulnerabilities. The last one, internet makes it possible. It's scalable. I mean, it's working for the attacker. You can do huge attacks with big scale, with very, very little effort. And anyone can use it. It's very easy. But still, I mean, botnets, I believe there was a number saying 25%, and that is a number of years ago, 25% of all computer laptops were part of a botnet without the owner knowing it. 25%. And they're on hire. You just buy per hour, per day, and you have a bit rate and whatever you would like to attack. So I think, I mean, any one of us could hire a botnet now. Nothing I recommend, but it's possible. Use your credit card, or better up, use someone else's credit card. So if I say the Dune attack was relatively harmless, some of the websites went down, nobody died, but this will change with the Internet of Things, with aircrafts, pacemakers, trains. There's a real risk. So now it's more like this. In a relatively short time, we've taken a system built to resist destruction by nuclear weapons and made it vulnerable to toasters. I don't know if I think that is innovation, but I think we have went through this connected world for such a long time that we know that the future is not always a beautiful sight. Thank you very much.